Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So we hope everybody's having a good day, and it's getting to be night here. It's getting late, but we wanted to share this video with you guys. If you haven't done so, please do subscribe so you get notifications, hopefully for some videos, although our good friend over at one of the Alphabet Soups said, by the way, I never get your notifications anymore. Just wanted to let you know. Appreciate you letting us know. Yep. Thank you very much. And both channels, EEARTS, which is going to be going deep and a little bit more on the spiritual side, and Evolutionary Energy Arts, we're going to keep up with all the chaos that's going on in the world. And please do check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com. And if you need to make an appointment for a Vedic astrology chart or energy work or help with getting through all the craziness with Ascension, just reach out to us at evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. So order out of chaos, ordo ab chaos. It's a motto, actually, that's Masonic in origin. As you see, the number 33. It's the 33rd degree level Freemasonry motto. So what really is meant by this? As you know, there are things that are on the superficial end. Often there are things that are intended for public consumption, and then there's those deeper truths that are a little bit more hidden.
And they're hidden for various reasons. Sometimes there's information that's hidden because there could be safety issues involved. Sometimes there's information that's hidden because it's just not time to be learned yet. But then there's other times when information is just hidden because it can control you, what you don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. This article gets into it. Now, this is, from Freemasons community life. So this is giving you a little bit more lighter and fluffier view of things. I think so many people, and I have friends that have been Freemasons, they join just thinking about all the good they're going to do. And maybe the vast majority of people do just leave it at that. They're having a good time with people, good discussion with people, doing some random acts of kindness, hopefully. But often there's something much, much deeper. And when we look to the founding of our nation, and we see George Washington himself in his Masonic apron and trowel there, actually a lot of the founding fathers were Freemasons. So all the ones numbered here and all the ones that have a little color to them, they were Freemasons. In fact, about 33% of the founding fathers were Freemasons, including George Washington, Ben Franklin. How about, remember Paul Revere's ride? Well, yeah, he was too. John Hancock, put your John Hancock on that, yeah. Chief Justice John Marshall. I mean, there's so many people that have been Freemasons throughout time. As we look at, these are presidents that were Freemasons: George Washington, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, James Polk, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, James A. Garfield, William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, William Taft, Warren Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford. So very interesting, the list of people that are Freemasons. How about the people that go to Bohemian Grove? Bohemian Grove is that kind of creepy place where guys get together and, they have a big owl that they perform their rituals. There's actually a ritual, too, of hanging somebody there. Now it's interesting because as you see Nixon and as you see Ford, Bohemian Grove seems to be more for the Republican side of things. Very, very interesting. Prominent business leaders, former presidents, musicians, oil barons, all are told that weaving spiders come not here, whatever that means. Well, they say that it means business deals are to be left outside. This is something different. One notable exception was 1942, when planning for the Manhattan Project took place at Bohemian Grove, which led to the creation of the atomic bomb. Yep, George W. and George H.W. Bush had their photos taken there at Bohemian Grove as well. It's a hush-hush club. Who knows what goes on there? They have some weird things, too. They cremate a coffin effigy called Care before a 40-foot owl. Yeah. And so some of the people that have been there, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Colin Powell, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, all of them have been photographed there. Also, Clint Eastwood, James Woods. And then we have political analyst for CNN, David Gergen, as well. He also served as an advisor for 4 presidential administrations. So, yeah, we could see there's a lot to these secret societies, and they're all interconnected, because then we jump over to Skull and Bones at Yale, and we see George W. Bush. And, in fact, both President Bushes and their grandfather, as well as Senator Kerry, were all members of the Skull and Bones Society at Yale. And they have the number 322 with what's supposed to be a skull and bones, which, you know it for the Jolly Roger. Pirates ran the Skull and Bones. But that 322 refers to Genesis 322. And shall we bring Genesis 322 up? And we've covered this before, but of course, there's always new people coming in that haven't heard this stuff before. So for some, this is new. Why would they have this? And the Lord God said, man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must now be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat forever. Well, again, who is the Lord? That's the big question. Who is the Lord? And are these politicians saying that they are now on a level with the Lord, whoever that may be? And of course, when you look deeper, things are not what they're supposed to be on a superficial level. Then we have the Illuminati group as well. Interesting, we see the pentagram, and we do see the pentagram being formed with a layout of Washington, D.C. Isn't that curious? Of course, it's an inverted pentagram. And for those that are not familiar with the occult, which just means that which is hidden, and again, you could say that Jesus, Yeshua, taught occult mysteries to his inner circle, because he taught in parables to the masses, but to the inner circle, he spoke plainly about the mysteries. And when you have a pentagram like this, the point that's pointing down here is supposed to represent spirit. And then these are representing earth, air, fire, and water. So it's basically valuing the material over that of the spiritual world. So if you see a pentagram with the point up, that's basically showing spirit in the superior position, but also the manifestation that we come from the spiritual realms down here into the physical for that temporary experience, this temporary roller coaster ride.
It is temporary, but can be difficult. It can be very difficult. And I think, a lot of times these details, they're quite important. You could say minor details with the pentagram the way it is, but it's really important, how things are laid out, how things are spoken, how things are done. And these groups have a deeper understanding of humankind, how we think, how we feel, how our emotions work. They have all of these understandings, and it's okay when you use things for guidance, and you use things like a loving mom or a loving dad would guide their child into some understanding. But sometimes I look at this stuff and I'm not so sure about that.
So this is a PDF on the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is a ritual that can be adjusted, and you could do a simplified version of it. But the way that the pentagram is drawn out means everything. So when we do the pentagram in this way, if we do a banishing earth pentagram, we start at the lower left point and then we draw with our finger, or you can draw with a dagger or a magic wand, whatever you choose and whatever you're comfortable with, starting from the lower left up to the top center, down to the lower right, over to the left shoulder, over to the right shoulder, and back. And you visualize it as a glowing blue silvery hue, and you say a phrase and you send it out into that direction. And what this does is this clears out an area. And this is a particular ritual that we do have a video on. There's a lot of other videos on. But see, it's all about which direction it is, because if we change position or we even change direction, we change the whole ritual.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she's so adorable. She's got her hand up like, me, pick me. Cindy,
okay,
let's get your intake on this.
Okay, thank you. So when you're drawing these stars, you guys remember when you were in school, you could just draw those super fast stars on the paper, and that's how you draw that the same way, but you just use your whole arm. So if you can remember how you drew the stars, it's the same thing, but you do it in the air and use those visuals.
Absolutely. So, it's interesting, because I remember probably 37 years ago, I had a person at a local store, a local magic shop, order this book, The Key of Mysteries by Eliphas Levi. And I had such a library years ago before I started moving around like crazy. Because when you go back in time, there's many great people historical figures that you might not realize just how tied up they were in the quote-unquote occult. And many, I do think it's even part of the training, is that the masses are kind of led to they're kind of led to believe on purpose that it's all devil worshipping and that it's all pure evil, because they want you afraid. They don't want you dabbling. They don't want you discovering that, you could actually control things. And it's not all negative entities. Many entities, like in this ritual here, what are you invoking? You're invoking the archangels. Do you trust Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But there are many Christians that do, per se. And Gabriel is also mentioned in Islam as well. And again, it just means it's hidden. Now, in these secret societies, they know all this stuff. I mean, this is what they learn. They learn all of this. And a lot of this, as you see, we were talking about Hermes the other day, and so it's Hermetic knowledge. It's Kabbalah. Again, it's the Western mystery tradition. And it's all understood by those in these secret societies. They don't want you knowing any of this, none of this, or as little as possible. And they want you always being concerned that you might be going down a dark road, so you don't dabble. After all, it's written in the Bible, right? Do not suffer a witch to live. And of course, we had Burn the Witch, which led to the death of countless innocent people and countless natural healers. Oh, you in the front row.
Pick me. No, I really do think it's quite sad that they had people afraid of the witches and not the people who were saying, burn the witches. So who are we trained to be in fear of? Is it somebody who understands how to work with the earth elements? That's just really, really sad how that happened. And then those people remained in power.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the case too, where the people that had a lot of knowledge, the elite, the controllers that are still here now, just their children, their grandchildren, in many cases, it's really the same souls that are reincarnating again, and they were here before, and they can tap into their past lives, and many times, in many cases, and they know what some of the details are of the past lives. They know some of the details of the hidden history. This is all the stuff you can be trained to remember, to recollect, and to set yourself up for the next life too, so that you can still have that memory and that knowledge base, because our lives are actually literally being intentionally shortened so that we can't build enough wisdom because we're not here long enough. And then we're also just rats or mice, however you want to look at it, running on the wheel to pay the taxes, to pay the rent, to pay the mortgage, to pay. The monetary system is really, if not the number one, it's one of the top couple ways they control us. It's through the monetary system. They also control through political ideology and religion, and all these things are just tools for the elite, tools. Then we have the Illuminati and the supposed founder, Adam Weishaupt, as well. Illuminati designation in use from the 15th century, assumed by or applied to various groups of persons who claim to be unusually enlightened. And according to adherents, the source of the light was viewed as being directly communicated from a higher source or due to a clarified and exalted condition of higher human intelligence. To the former class belong the Alumbrados, which is Spanish for enlightened of Spain. Spanish historian Marcelino Mendez y Pelayo first finds the name in about 1492. Wow, that's the same number that comes up when we think about Columbus discovering, right, America. Interesting, but traces them back to a Gnostic origin and thinks their views were promoted in Spain through influences from Italy. One of the earliest leaders, indeed, some scholars style her as pre-Alumbrado, was Maria de Santo Domingo, who came to be known as La Beata de Piedrahita. She was a laborer's daughter, born in Aldea Nueva, south of Salamanca. About 1845, she joined the Dominican order as a teenager and soon achieved renown as a prophet and a mystic who could converse directly with Yeshua and the Virgin. What they, of course, say Jesus and the Virgin. So interesting. And you could get into the Dominicans. We could get into all the different things. We could get into, the Knights Templar as well, and the Cathars. History is just loaded with people that, at some point in time came to know too much and were too dangerous and then had to be eradicated for the controllers to keep control.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing, is that they keep control. It's like they have plenty of money, they don't need any more money. So it gets to a point where, well, what do they want? What is it that they hold golden and dear? And that's control, and this is why we make these videos, and we try to help people understand that you don't have to give up your sovereignty. You can be free. You can learn all of these things. These are all gifts that are open for everybody to know and understand.
Yeah, then we could go into the Rosicrucian order as well, which I have some wonderful books on. The Rosicrucian order, and that link didn't really work, did it? And again, when you see Christian Rosenkreutz as the founder, this one doesn't have anything there. Again, you got to figure it's a pseudonym again, because that's referring to, as Rosicrucians are referring to, basically the Rosy Cross. And you see the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. A lot of these you're going to have to subscribe to, guys. But yeah, there are some fabulous books on this. And again, and I did actually join the Rosicrucian order like decades ago, for a while, and it was fun. It was just basically all recapping stuff I already knew. There was nothing evil there. It was just basically teaching you Kabbalah and teaching you some Gnostic points and Hermeticism and yoga. It's, again, at the entry levels to many of these, you're just really going over basic knowledge. Now this guy's got some advanced knowledge, and he's kind of painful to look at.
These guys are a little bit painful to look at. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but you just don't see this too often, but these are some of the entities when I look and see, okay, who's behind the scenes, who is calling the shots, and it just really, it's difficult to understand at first. But if you stop and think about the ways of the world and how things are not falling together, but so falling apart, it's not anything that humans would do to humans. So when you change the lens and you realize that entities who are not necessarily human are running the show, then things start to make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, so the thing is, okay, so you have all these secret societies. How do they work together? I mean, how do they work together? Because they do work together. They are interrelated, intertied, intertwined. Well, they all report to somebody that's not human. And that's the bottom line. And who do they report to? Well, the ones known as the Igigi. The ones known as the Igigi from the Sumerian legends. The ones that rebelled against the Anunnaki and said, we're not doing the hard labor anymore. Nope. Sorry. And so then the Anunnaki created man, so to speak. But they created, basically what they did was they manipulated something that was here, which many people recognize that fact too. But in so many ways, when we're looking at how they keep humanity in control, they didn't bless us. They did quite the opposite. They are always trying to create the better slave, the better servitor. These guys, there's only one of these original ones left here on the earth at this time. They're getting very weak. They can't take the energetic shifts. If you want to think about his personality and what these guys are like, think about Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. That's kind of it in a nutshell. But this is a pretty good representation of who really runs the show on Earth. It's not human. It is what we would call an Igigi. And again, at one time there were many of them. Now there's just the one left from the original batch that came here. And many of them, again, they came here from Mars. Yet they do come from Nibiru as well. But, their power is waning, and they are very powerful again, as far as, their quote-unquote magical abilities, which we all have. It's all about mind abilities.
It is, very much so. And a lot of these entities, there's like interrelation when it comes to blood relations. And what this does is when there's a certain blood lineage and a bloodline, it gives an entity more of an ability to kind of log in and control. So it's sort of like puppetry. So the more of this blood they have in their lines, the more they are going to do as the controllers wish. And this is just something that I've seen, and it kind of says it all. I mean, it really, really does. It said so much. The first time I saw that, I'm like, wow, I can't believe this. And
just stare. Just take a few moments and just stare at this eagle, and then you'll see the alien staring right back at you. And of course, when we look to the Greys, they're just worker bees. I do feel kind of bad for the Greys because they have been so twisted and manipulated. It's sad. They're nothing but slaves, but some have even said that the Greys may be us from the future for those that do end up going the AI route. And that AI route has started. It has started, and they're making it so that it is something that you have to choose to do. You might have your arm twisted. You might not be able to do the usual thing that you do on Mondays at 8 a.m. or, for some people, or 9 a.m. for others. If you know what I mean, trabaja. That's the beginning. This is the beginning of the assimilation into the AI Borg. And again, that's what they are, is they're just nothing but slaves for the leadership. It's all right there. Everything we see, everything about our monetary system, when you look at the dollar bill, it's all there because it's been put into place by these secret societies. They're the ones that have done all this. The way that the DC was laid out, the whole capital and everything, it was done completely in line with astrology, and in order to take advantage of the energies that they wanted to take advantage of. They understand the significance of this layout, these patterns, aligning things to the stars, because again, the stars, the planets, they're all living beings. They all have certain intelligence, certain energies to them. So this has been laid out for a purpose, for a precise purpose. Do you think it's just coincidence that, February 22nd of this year is when the war started in Ukraine? They waited, because that's the Pluto return of the U.S. They waited for that. Mm-hmm. They waited for that to come before starting that war, because symbolically that war is supposed to bring about basically the end of the U.S. as we know it. Mm-hmm. That's part of what they have completely planned. When they started to put DC together, they actually waited. As we see here, this is a diagram showing you the different degrees of the Masons. So you see here the secrets of astrology and its relation to DC.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this information is kind of kept in the shadows. And when we're talking about this and we're talking about astrology, we have a deeper understanding, and we know that when the first foundation of the White House was being laid by George Washington, he waited until the moon entered the sign of Virgo, and only then did he lay the first brick. Astrology is not just part of a common man, but it is closely guarded. It is a closely guarded entity of our forefathers and around the world. And there is not secret astrology except the secrets of astrology. And everyone knows their sun sign and even moon sign, and they read the horoscope on websites and magazines on daily or weekly basis. But is that true astrology? And how is it that those two written paragraphs on the website about coming week is related to you personally? The website physically received your birth time. So basically what this is... Sorry, the dogs kind of get excited sometimes. But really, astrology is all about the vibration and how your vibratory rate of your body is reflecting off of all the planets. And it's not just about the sun sign, it's not just about the moon sign, but it's about all of these planets intertwined. And when you understand this astrology and you're deep into it, you can use certain dates, certain times to create a certain effect. And that's why they waited for the Pluto return to do what they've did and to get a certain ball rolling. So this happens all the time. You can watch the stars and you can see world events and how it correlates into the astrology to make these things go. So this was just really interesting. I thought that was super interesting about how they started they started making the White House at that time. Also using the vibrations to gain momentum so that people would have a certain I want to call it a spell, like a spell laid over them, and it would help them stay under control. And this went well for a little while until it kind of went bad.
Well, it is a spell. They're constantly putting spells on us. Hey, we're taught spelling in school, right? You get to write cursive. Just think about the English language construction in and of itself. It's just so obvious and so right out there. Now, the worship of Saturn by the higher elites is a very common ritual. Saturn, according to the Hindu and Egyptian scriptures, is the most wealth and fame-giving planet. But the agents of the governments back hundreds of years ago began scaring people about the death-inflicting and misery-giving planet Saturn and gave it useless, powerless ritual to the common man to protect themselves from its yearly transits and cycles, while behind the scenes, the secret prayers of the Kabbalah and the Zohar were being performed to consume the energy of Saturn in talismans and in rings to bring great success to powerful men inside white shiny walls. And that makes me think of a picture I was just looking at of Brad Pitt with his Masonic ring on, all smiles. Again, and it's gonna become even more apparent, really. We already know with all these rituals that they do in the halftime of the Super Bowl and at the opening and closing ceremonies at the Olympics. They're all rituals designed to increase their power. So, this is so obvious. The agents also gave the people the complete raw mathematical cycle of the planets, which, including the sun, they made the degree of the sun 23 degrees ahead of its true position. This way, no one can truly know the real transits of the sun and the other planets. This is why we follow Vedic astrology and not Western astrology. Where did Western astrology come from? Well, it's really attributed, it's thought that it was brought back by Alexander the Great from India. So India was the original. And again, when you look to the Magi, like the wise men that came from the East, commonly attributed to Persia. And again, Persia is right next to India, and most definitely exchange of information and some ancient knowledge that occurred there. So very interesting stuff. I'll have all these links for you. This says the countdown of 2025 and the secret destiny of America. Yes, 2025. There's that number again, right? DEAGEL numbers. Well, it shows America having 99 million people. Wait a minute. We got 337 million plus 20 million probably illegals. How could we possibly end up with just 99 million people in less than 3 years' time? Well, we need to prepare because we could see what's rolling out. We could see the war clouds on the horizon that they have been stirring up. This is all part of their bigger plan here. All part of the same plan that's been going on for a very long time. This is not their first rodeo. And in fact, we have gotten recently that they do set us back, set humanity back on a much more regular basis than people realize. Many people are starting to catch on to this with the thoughts of the mud flood and what happened to Tartaria as well, and that civilization. Of course, so many things are covered up, tremendously covered up. They're constantly rewriting history as they constantly rewrite the science as well. I think, again, a very good analogy is what we saw when we looked at George Orwell's 1984. There was a whole division that was just designed to basically take what was happening, and we have it today, and spin it into a propaganda that could be useful. Constantly rewriting everything that's happening.
Right. And everything right now is so unfortunate how they have people really set against each other, and they're bringing division amongst division right now, but that's only going to weaken us. So a lot of times I think it's important we set our differences aside and come together as one, as caring people who just simply care about each other and want each other to get through these hard times okay.
Yeah, and so this is getting into the argument of who put the all-seeing eye on the U.S. Dollar bill. It's attributed to Roosevelt, and he's talking about it possibly being some gentleman named Wallace. Again, it's all, and again, that's another Mason, right? It's all part of the big plan that they've rolled out for us. And so we go back to that order out of chaos, and we saw what happened with the chaos in LA with the Roe versus Wade thing. And what do you see when you start looking at the comments? You see a lot of chaos because people will take sides, and this is what they want. They want us attacking each other. Regardless of what side you take, they would love to see you pointing out to somebody else and saying, "How could you possibly say that? I can't believe you said that." And pointing the finger the other way. They don't care what side you take. Just take a side. As long as you take a side and start attacking the other side, they're happier than a pig and you know what.
Well, they've gotten exactly what they wanted then.
Exactly, because they're moving forward with their agenda. So that's why we need to always be guarding our emotions as well. So guys, again, please make sure you are subscribed. Thank you for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi. Couldn't do it without your support there. And also do check out Medicinal Foods. Use coupon code EEA. You get a discount. It does support the channel. A lot of good stuff there. I'm proud of Cindy. She's gone 24 hours on her fast right now. We're both at basically a 24-hour point, and we're shooting for 72. And right now in these times, I think we have to fast more than we usually would. And I think it's because we're being hit with all sorts of toxins, all sorts of EMF, all sorts of things that might be shedding in the streets, so to speak. So we need to be detoxing, giving our bodies time to purge and cleanse. It's really important. So stay prepared. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.